friends and enemies, welcome back to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. Len, this is our 200th episode. I don't know if you know.
Oh,
you know
no.
Yeah,
No, I was unaware.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've done this a bunch, I guess.
Yeah, almost.
That's the right way to put it.
It's going to be 4 years in a couple of months, 3 months, 2 months.
Like coming up on that.
That's a long time going at this show. And I'm sure there's a lot more to come. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, it's been outstanding. I think this year, this year is going to be a fun year for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, but it's just another year that you and I get together Monday night with a few of our closest friends and chop it up on all the things that are going on in Bitcoin. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. Before we do that, let's get into the sponsors. EasyDNS. Mark is the man when it comes to registrar. He's your friendly neighborhood registrar, as he likes to say. So if you want to get a website started, you got some choices. You can buy a domain, port it over to Mark, or Mark can help you buy it. He's done that for us in both cases. And we're very happy with the level of service we received. By the way, not just because he's a sponsor of the show, but I think he actually was helping us with this stuff before we even partnered with EasyDNS, which is not much. It's not a lot of people you can say that about these days. Not many opportunities for just quality support. I don't know if you've ever tried Amazon support or any other big box store support. It ain't much, let me tell you. Mark is not like that. On top of that, for the Bitcoin enthusiasts, lots of virtual private server stuff you can do. Bitcoin node, Nostr relay, nodeless implementation, BTC Pay server, whatever. They got your back over there. And then, of course, the domain share suite of security features. Lots of ways to make sure you're protected. Don't get spoofed. Don't get hacked. Don't have somebody who is nefarious in nature commandeer your domain handle somehow and get your client list, email your customers, all that stuff. You can't have that. So go over to easydns.com. Use our promo code CBP Media. Mark will give you 50% off your first round of buys. Who's next?
Bull. Bitcoin. I don't know what the price of Bitcoin is, but I think it's over $100,000 just looking at the Moscow time. So a good time to sell, good time to buy Bitcoin. Whatever you want to do, Bull Bitcoin has you covered because fees are high. You could use Lightning. When fees are low, you can use on-chain. I checked earlier today. Fees are still very low. So still do your stuff on-chain. Don't screw around with the other stuff just yet. But learn it because you never know when you will need it. Either way, Bull Bitcoin will engage and be able to sell you your Bitcoin. They're non-custodial. This is what you want. Your Bitcoin's never going to get rugged because once you make your order, you have to provide them with an address in which to send it to you. Always reuse addresses. Sorry, don't reuse addresses. Make
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Don't always generate new ones. Sorry, that's the way to say it. So that way you're going to get your Bitcoin to your wallet. They don't hold on to it. We've heard many stories. We covered them all about people getting rugged for leaving their Bitcoin on exchange. They don't allow that. Just fucking put a new address, go nuts, and where you go. You could also start spending your Bitcoin in one of two ways. Number one, you could pay your bills. And so like if you have a car payment, you have electricity bill that you have to pay something, and you don't want to use your dirty fiat to pay it, you could use your Bitcoin, especially if you bought your Bitcoin a long time ago or have been buying it for quite some time and you made some gains. That's one way you could do with your Bitcoin. You could start spending it to pay your bills. Another thing you can do is buy gift cards that they offer over there. And with that, you could start spending your Bitcoin in the real world with the select vendors that they offer the gift cards. Because right now in Canada, you can't spend your Bitcoin directly with the vendor. So this is the way to get around it. So if you want to live on a Bitcoin standard, just the way Satoshi wants you to do it, this is the way you have to do it. Buy the gift cards, use your Bitcoin. So if you're not a Bull Bitcoin member or customer just yet, check them out. Use our promo code. By doing that, signing up using our code, you're going to get $21 added to your account once you provide the necessary information. Also, they are available in Europe and the European Union countries. So if you're listening over there, many different places you can sign up for Bull Bitcoin and take advantage of all the offerings they have. Again, non-custodial, privacy in nature. This is what you want in exchange. They are the best in the game.
Si vous habitez dans Europe, il n'y a pas un problème. Maintenant, c'est bon.
Yeah, as long as it's the EU, you're fine. So it could be Switzerland, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal.
Can't beat it. Bull Bitcoin's the best. Okay, let's do some housekeeping first. Last week on the show, who do we have, Len? Phil Bach, former managing director of the New York Stock Exchange. And did I do a Tuesday show too? I think I did. It was Mayor Ken Sim maybe last week.
Did you lower your volume? Because it's a little bit lower now.
Is it?
Yeah, he can't hear you. See, Boom Dust is saying that. Even I had to.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, maybe. Hold on, let me check.
So it wasn't just me. It's not my hearing is going bad. So yeah, we had Phil Bach on the show last week.
Phil
I'll just
Bach. How about now? Is it
Bach.
better now?
No.
No. What?
So we had him on the show. Joey interviewed him last week as well. We had somebody else. Gosh, I'm gonna have to go through the archives to find who else Joey interviewed last week. This is quality entertainment here. So let's see. Yeah, you're still kind of low over there for whatever reason, Joey. I don't know why.
Now
it's way better. Yeah.
Yeah, better now.
Yeah. And we had Mayor Ken Sim come on last week, and he's the mayor of Vancouver.
I just say that he was a great interview. I cannot stress enough. I said this to him during the show, and I told him after the show as well that, Len, I joked before in the intro to that show. Thank you for listening, Len, by the way. Clearly you didn't listen. That you and I have rejected requests for interview on this show from CBC, Toronto Star, and politicians who I will not name. And the reason we do it is always why. I just don't think it's worth the time for the listener. I don't think it's worth the time for the viewer. And I don't think it's worth my time. I don't want to have someone come on the show and give me prepackaged answers and try and twist my words and all this other bullshit that you deal with when you talk to the media and when you talk to politicians. And when Mayor Ken Sim's office reached out to us, my first instinct was to say no. And when I thought about it for 10 minutes after we spoke, I thought, you know what, we should do it because this guy is trying to be a Bitcoiner and he's doing good work for Vancouver. He's been the mayor for 2 years. Let's have him on. And listening to a few interviews he's done, Len, he's always a straight shooter. The guy truly is sort of the kind of politician you want. A guy who, like he says, views his work as a politician as a passion project. That's not a negative connotation. It's, I care about the city. I care about the job I'm doing. I do not care if I get reelected. I have to do the right thing. That's important. So he was really good. And then Phil Bach, I thought, for a guy who was, like, again, managing director of the New York Stock Exchange for 6 years, has founded companies, has done like this guy's done it all in traditional finance. And for him to come on and decide that instead of talking markets, he wants to talk about just things that are going on in the world and how he feels about narratives and how he feels about culture. Like, that's another thing I liked about Phil. Like, for a guy who's, who could be guarded and could be very averse to having difficult or potentially controversial conversations because of his roles and because of the things he's planning on doing in the future. Instead, he goes all, like, you can't beat guys who want to go all in on the things they think and the things they believe. And truly appreciative to both those guys for their time, because they could be doing a lot of other shit besides talking to me on a weeknight. And for them to come on our program, Len, says a lot about them. I was really happy with both those interviews.
Well, it's wintertime. What else are you going to be doing on a weekday? So
I don't know.
Right,
At night, I mean, for Kenny, it was like 4:00, so he could be like, going to get a beer somewhere or something, going to see his kids. I don't know.
Could be wrapping up council. I'm not sure if they're in session. And
I don't know. Good question.
I have no clue. But either way, he's out there. He's promoting a lot what he's doing with Bitcoin, and he was accepting Bitcoin part of his campaign quite some time ago. So
2 years ago he ran. So yeah, he's been he's not new for sure. And I want to thank Jeff Booth too. Jeff Booth was the one who told the mayor's office to reach out to Len and I. So I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you very much for thinking of us.
Yeah. Joey, for the next segment.
This week,
oh, sorry.
BTC BAP, Zach from Spaces, Bitcoin Space Denver is coming on. I said before, I've been critical of this whole like group working area. I don't know why you'd go to a group working area. Odell's got one in Nashville. Obviously, there's another one probably in New York, I think. I forget where. And there are others all around the country, all around the world. I don't get the hype. Zach's going to tell me why I'm wrong. And I don't know, Len, maybe we'll rent out a room in your house or something and start doing Bitcoin podcasts there. What do you think?
Do we have to, are these people paying for these, or is it a free
I think they're
thing?
paying for it. I don't want to say it's like WeWork, because that's definitely got a negative connotation around it now, but it's basically a place where Bitcoiners get together, make content, and do kinds of collaborative work. It's not all content, but think stuff like policy or stuff like engaging local politicians. It's a meeting place that's sort of geared toward Bitcoin, where you can bring people, I suppose, of all stripes, political, religious, or otherwise, and just have them in there and talk hard money. I think. Well, Zach will tell me on Wednesday. That'll be a good show.
Is it a place you could do DDoS attacks? At least start them up?
I don't know. Maybe. Sure. Yeah. Why? You know any foreign AI that needs to be DDoSed?
I have none, no, but one was, as you mentioned, hit today, which I find to be pretty funny. As soon as they released it, got all this. Well, I mean, it was maybe been released in a while for some time, but as soon as it got all this publicity, boom, they got nailed by that DDoS.
Yeah.
So I find that to be really funny. And man, oh man, how fragile their markets. Just release one app, you could tank a company.
Crazy.
How much did it go down? Was it like 100 million?
Nvidia today. I don't know. I was tracking.
I heard it was
like
hundreds of billions. Like it was
600 billion at one point. It was down 17% today, so probably finished even higher than that, like even lower than that.
600 billion.
Yeah.
Like that's like 1/3 of the overall market cap of Bitcoin.
That's 100. That's 100 liberal fall economic statements of $20 billion misses.
That's another way. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the rigging later on.
Oh man! Shout out to my guy Arya Chandra.
Chandra Arya.
Brutal. Whatever. Yeah.
Area. I don't know. So I butchered your name.
We asked him to come on. Sir, you're more than welcome. Anyway.
It would be like, yeah, it'd be nice to chat. I mean, that guy's probably
just are we starting there? Where are we starting? We got
no. Let's do Bitcoin.
Do the boost.
Well, you know what? That's what I want to say. I couldn't fucking get the boost from Fountain.
Oh my god!
I can't. I can see
Oscar
people are
Mary.
boosting us.
Get Oscar Mary.
I'm gonna have to talk with them. I can't find the fucking information. So every time I go there, I get timed out. So
oh no.
Thank you for boosting us, people, but I unfortunately can't read them because
we can see the stats. We cannot see the comments.
Yeah, what the fuck? So thank you very much. We'll make a few up along the way.
There's going to be the one guy who sends us the cheers emojis all the time.
Yeah. Oh,
unknown username.
Yeah.
MoBTC Dick 21 sats.
Yeah.
Who else?
There's always
other people.
Yeah. Anyways, let's dive into the Bitcoin news.
I should tell you. I forgot to tell you this off air. I'll tell you on air. I sent Mark Ripito an extra large CBP shirt, so one less in the stable. Just so you know.
All right. I don't even know what's in inventory right now. But
I can't remember. Not much. Like a couple stragglers left.
Yeah. Well, Ross, let's talk about him because he was free this past week, right?
Yeah.
And it was maybe
during
a
last
pretty
week's
big
show, by the way. I think was the.
Did it? Was it on the 20th? No, because Trump was inaugurated on the 20th when we did the show that day. It was the very next day. It wasn't a day one executive.
Or during Mayor Sim's show, maybe. It was during a show. I remember seeing it in the live chat, but it could have been that Tuesday show. You're right.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, he wasn't given a commuting of a sentence. He was giving a full pardon. And there's a difference between the two, commuting, because the commuting of a sentence has him finish his jail term, but still has on the record, his record, the crime itself. The full pardoning basically excludes that. It erases it from his record. So moving forward, in case he has to apply for a job, a passport, whatever the heck, he doesn't have anything on his record that will prevent him from getting whatever he has to get, like even loans, whatever. So really, it's a big move by Donald Trump, and he's done this at the behest of all the Bitcoiners out there trying to urge him on. Let's be honest, if it wasn't for a lot of people out there, and I wasn't one of them, I've been pretty quiet on the whole Ross front. There's been a lot of people that have been very vocal, and good for them to make this happen. And a lot of Bitcoiners obviously rejoiced because this is a big move by Trump, and it shows that he's listening to a group of folks who have yet to have been listened to before, which are Bitcoiners. When was the last time that a prominent politician, aside from Ken Sim maybe, appeased a lot of these Bitcoiners out there? President
don't say Lummis anymore.
It's
rare. It's rare. You're right.
Yeah,
never, probably.
So if you go back to Ross, and without going too far into it, I mean, really, I think the thing that people were pissed off at was really one of two things. It's either the length of his sentence or the fact that he is serving time, right? Like the sentence was 2 life terms consecutively. So, and plus another 40 years on top of that. So, really it would be the rest of his natural life in there. Murderers have gotten far less than that.
Especially if you're here illegally, you get a lot less.
So
just fucking insane, by the way. But yeah, Ross, congratulations. Doesn't need to be in jail. Well, didn't have anybody killed. Just ran a website where people were selling T-shirts and other shit and drugs.
There's a lot we don't know. That's the reality. All I could say definitively is that the length of the sentence was incorrect.
Yeah,
somebody was trying to make an example out of him or he rubbed somebody
For
the
sure.
wrong way.
For sure.
Maybe a combination of the two. The fact that he should have been in prison or not, I don't know. I don't know all the facts, and everybody out there really, it's hard for them to absorb all the facts. From what I gather, what did he do? What did he do? Really, only he knows. Maybe the people that investigated this. Other than that, I mean, in the end, though, it's a good thing he's out because, like I said, the sentence was too darn long. And one good thing he did with Bitcoin, he proved that it could be used as a medium of exchange. And to this day, it's not really being used as a medium of exchange. This is the one thing that's really holding back Bitcoin, in my opinion. And I'm guilty of this too, of not using it as a medium of exchange, but I'm using it more of a store of value, just like a lot of other people are.
Right.
But the website he ran, the only way, one of the ways you could buy stuff would be with Bitcoin. So that proved there's a case use for Bitcoin. And that was done at an early time, long before Bitcoin was on the radar of some folks. So that website alone helped move Bitcoin along and helped mature it much faster than it would if that website wasn't in existence.
Yes.
So with that being said, like, you got to give him credit for putting that website out there and helping push Bitcoin further along in its maturity process.
Not much else to say about it, really. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's overdue. I see Boomer in the chat talking about how libertarians played a role. There's some debate about that. I think that really this is a lot more to do with Bitcoiners than it is to do with libertarians. Now, libertarians, of course, want the guy to be free as well, but had basically no voice, including the president of the Libertarian Party, who seems to, in the last week, have become semi, niche internet micro famous because she was in the space, I guess, and Ross's mother called her and told her first. But I really do attribute this to the Bitcoiners, not only because we were the loudest voice, Len, but because, Bitcoiners, especially in the United States, they just made so many campaign contributions to Trump and had so many positive points of contact with Trump. There's almost no doubt that that was the thing that pushed it over the edge. So libertarians, it wasn't a zero, but it's not even close to the influence that the Bitcoin crowd had. In my opinion, it seems to me like that's pretty obvious.
I have nothing to add to that. Really, this whole topic, there's not much I could say about it, because as much as I sympathize with him, it's hard for me to really just talk much about it, because it's a story. I don't know why it just didn't interest me all that much. I feel bad for the fact he was put in jail for that length of time. But again, without knowing all the facts, and it's impossible for me to know all the facts.
Totally.
For whatever reason, I never found it to be all that appealing a story. But in the end, he lost basically his 30s, or it's gone.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of his life, earning power. And there's so many things you could do in your 30s.
What do you make of this bit about the story that he's got dormant Bitcoin, 250,000 dormant Bitcoin?
I have no opinion on that. Do you think that's the case?
I don't know, honestly. I suppose we'll find out. I mean, someone was, I think it was one of these XBT accounts on Twitter that was tracking what they thought were the wallets that belonged to Albrecht. So I don't know. I mean, the Silk Road Bitcoin was confiscated, but his personal Bitcoin, perhaps not. I guess we'll find out.
Leads to the question: if indeed he has it,
should it become the Bitcoin of the strategic reserve? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the laws now that the sentence has been pardoned. Or sorry, his crimes have been pardoned. If indeed he has it and he starts flaunting he has it and using it for transactions, does the United States have any claim to it, saying based on
it'd be a tough sell, right? Because
he's been pardoned.
Yeah. So
right. So I don't know.
Sentence not commuted. Maybe that was part of the backdoor, dealings. I have no idea. I wish I knew. Now, it's interesting though. Interesting legal question for one of you legal heads out there.
Mm-hmm. And to be perfectly honest, in the end, it's going to be up to the judge and his or her how or he woke up that morning and deciding how they're going to.
Laws don't matter in the United States is the secret here. It's all about whatever people think this is the best thing for me.
Yeah. Well, like this digital asset stockpile, what people were thinking was supposed to be.
Oh
or
fuck!
Really...
What a mess. Can we take a victory lap here? Do we have any non-trademark victory lap music? I should have thought about this before. Me and you have been steadfast on this program, I think, in my opinion, about whether or not we should be embracing politicians who support Bitcoin. We had so many live chat comments over the years, and so many comments from guests, and so many comments from people who tweet at us and email us and fucking leave. Like, if there's a place to leave me a comment, I've seen it. And it's always, we need to support people like Cynthia Lummis. We need to support politicians who want to do Bitcoin properly. We need to support people who want to do the reserve. Like I said on this show so many fucking times that all Lummis's bills had crypto in them, all of them. That all these bills about SAB 21 and about fair accounting, and like, it's all crypto. We were critical and have continued to be critical of Michael Saylor. Doesn't stop me from making a mint on MSTR, but I'll tell you that we've been critical of that guy when almost every other podcast was slobbing his knob over the last 5 years. He's the Bitcoin CEO. He's driving Bitcoin, the Trump max, the at the money issuance. It's an infinite money glitch. All that shit is fine. But what's he tweeting now? What's he tweeting? Crypto,
crypto, yeah.
Crypto. Friend of the show, SB, and I had a discussion about this off the air. I should just bring him on one day and we'll just go back and forth with each other on this about whether or not Saylor is just playing the game. This is an argument I've heard a bunch of. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But I don't think the people who were, again, like trying to suck the unborn kids out of his cock, okay, over the last 5 years would have told you that he was, quote unquote, playing the game. They told you he was the maxi. They put that there is no second best video everywhere. Well, it sure as shit seems like you think there's a second best now, Mike, doesn't it? That was a dishonest, I think a dishonest period, to be quite frank with you, where he was not being completely forthcoming about what he thought, what he was supporting, and this, that, and the other thing. Now, this is not to say that a strategic crypto asset reserve, whatever the fuck David Snakes is pushing on Trump, is not going to be good for the Bitcoin price. It is. But is it good that we embrace, I say we, that the United States embraces all this other garbage, Ethereum, Solana, whatever? Like, Sachs is a VC guy. There's a lot of VC guys around Trump now. Trump is a guy who likes making money. Who doesn't, by the way? Not a negative personality trait. But if you think that all this stuff is going to be good for, quote unquote, like Bitcoin as the apex asset, I honestly don't think it is. Doesn't mean numbers not going to go up. Doesn't mean that, people are not going to be richer for holding Bitcoin. But it does mean that people are going to be less sovereign because they're holding other shit instead, trying to make a quick buck. And that really is the thing you have to think about in a lot of ways. Are you going to bring people in with the shiny object dangling over them and say, look, if you own like all these other things, look at the stuff the Trump organization just bought. They bought Solana, they bought Ethereum, they bought whatever else, some other shit coins, I forget what. We should just mirror that bag, because there's no way those kids be buying stuff that wasn't going to be in the reserve. There's no way the kids be buying stuff that wasn't going to be supported by the government in some way, implicit, explicit, or otherwise. Those people will buy that stuff and they will lose on the sovereignty. They will lose on the freedom that Bitcoin grants, censorship resistance, the portability, fungibility. You can do that if you like and be perfectly happy, I guess. But the idea that all these guys who were like, I'm running out of ways to describe the hoovering of this guy's tip that was going on over the last 5 years. And all the while, me and you were saying something ain't right here. I think we deserve some flowers for that. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if Mike, ends up changing his tune at all. I don't know. Maybe he'll stay a maxi. Maybe he is just playing the game. Maybe all this will be for naught, and you and me will be laughing on a, Italian peninsula in 5 years, just rolling in absolutely monster UTXOs, and maybe not. Who knows?
Well,
but
you've been more critical of him, I think,
than
I have.
Yeah, but whatever.
I don't-
You but you haven't been uncritical. You haven't been
No.
slurping. You haven't been glazing.
No.
You've just been sitting.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't want his company to not succeed. I prefer to succeed. I have no skin in the game. I don't want to see it fall on its sword and die. He is, at the very least, he has brought Bitcoin to talk to it into Wall Street. I'll give him credit there. I wish, and I say this a lot. I'll say it again. I wish that they did buy Bitcoin and store it themselves and to hold on to the keys. Why? One of the beautiful things about Bitcoin is because it's digital, you don't have to have it physically stored somewhere else like fucking gold. You could just hold on to your keys. And that's one of the things I wish that they'd done as a company and just prove that's something that this is the way things should be done. And they never done that. I don't want to, that's a dead horse. I don't want to keep beating it, but it's too bad given he's talking about crypto these days. Maybe he is playing a game. I don't know. In the end, he's still going to do what he has to do. He's still going to sell debt. He's still going to dilute, and he's still going to try to buy more Bitcoin.
Well, he's also now hedging a little bit. I think. Like, I'm not an expert.
I was just going to say that I think he's only going to buy Bitcoin.
Well,
am I wrong?
No, but he's hedging because he's introduced a preferred stock. Right?
What is this? I saw that it's not more fiat. I mean, I can't stand this fucking shit. By the way, it's driving bonkers.
We need SB to give us a breakdown on this because I am not in a position to talk about this. But
like
it seems to me like he was all about at the money, accruing Bitcoin, sats per share, all that stuff.
Oh, that's another thing that's fucking nuts.
This is different. This is different. So like, why issue this? You can. I know you can convert this to
Nvidia lose today,
huh?
How much money we said Nvidia lost 600 billion?
700 billion, something like that.
And I don't know about if Meta lost anything. I have no idea if Microsoft. I don't have a fucking clue. Like, so many people are losing their minds because of the amount of wealth that they lost today. And I can say this confidently. The only thing I care about really is how many sats I have tomorrow compared to today. And if the number's higher, I'm happy. I don't care if the value of the Bitcoin has gone down relative to the US dollar in that one day, because in 10 years it's going to be way higher. I don't have to think about all this shit after hours, looking at charts, reading fucking news, what I'm going to invest in next. The only thing I fucking buy is the one thing is Bitcoin. That's the one thing people should. So when he's talking about doing this, selling these preferred shares and all this, it's just fiat trash. Like, it's just more things you got to read, more things you got to fucking dive into. And all that time you just simply just fucking buy Bitcoin and do something else in the meantime. Just wait.
That's fair.
That's it.
That's
really it.
No one is saying you're wrong, but I will say that I have to at least, quantify or give a little bit more disclosure here about the MSTR common versus preferred. He says that he's going to use the preferred stock income to buy Bitcoin. Remains to be seen. Part of that wasn't
doing this
by
continuously.
the way, this was not. He did a fucking hour-long presentation at the Q3 call in 24 about this, $80 billion or whatever it was, $42 billion plan, 21 and 21, right?
Yep. 22
and he didn't mention preferred stock even once. And then
Correct.
4 months later, he's got issuing a preferred stock. So, again, the lesson here, and I think the takeaway here is you cannot give your trust to anyone. You cannot stake your wealth on anyone. There is such a thing as operator risk. This is operator risk on stilts. Okay. You are at the mercy of this guy's whims and impulses, best and worst, if you are an MSTR. If you can handle that, cool. I'm guilty. I've been there. I still have some MSTR. That's what I'm doing. Len is not doing that. You don't have to do it either. But you're at the point now where this guy is doing stuff that he didn't tell you he was going to do 4 months ago as part of this plan for $42 billion. So this is separate or a little bit of a hedge. I don't know. Someone's got to tell me, what I should be looking at here to make a decision. But to me, could do without, honestly, at this point, all this stuff. There's never been a better time. I shouldn't say better. There's never been an easier time to buy Bitcoin and basically not worry about anything except the US dollar price, if that's what you're worried about. You don't have to worry about legislation. You don't have to worry about, I don't think for much longer, tax implications. I think you're probably fine on all those fronts over a 10-year plus horizon. So never been a time where the tailwinds have been more obvious for Bitcoin, and the headwinds in traditional finance, including MSTR, have been, you know, as strong as they are now. Maybe now someone for sure is going to chew my head off for that, but I just, it's interesting is all I'm saying. And it's something that we have to keep an eye on. That's it.
There'll be a point in time, and I know you said it looks like that's not going to be the case, but there may be a point in time in the future that it will be harder to buy Bitcoin wherever you live. And so why risk that?
Bitcoin's going to go the way of the dodo at some point for sure.
So why risk it? Why not just buy what you can now and avoid later on when you're going to have to liquidate?
Well, okay, let me ask you something.
It'll be maybe difficult to do it. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you it's easy now.
Did you see the Fink comments about tokenizing equities?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I glossed over it, but yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with it.
People, the sort of midwit is saying, well, how does tokenizing equities help with anything? I can already buy and sell 24/7, blah, blah, blah. Tokenizing equities.
You're taking away a lot of the middle person there with brokerages and shit.
It becomes P2P a little bit, right? And, you know, if you can start using tokenized equities, it's funny, every time we talk about stores of value and mediums of exchange or spoke about this, you know, let's say 5 years ago, people would always say, why would I would much rather, or you say to people, like, everyone is storing value in Apple stock instead of cash. Like, no one keeps cash. They'd much rather keep it in Apple stock. That was sort of the standard. And it is still the standard in a lot of ways, to be honest with you. So, you know, people who keep their cash in Apple stock will say to you when they're talking about why they don't own Bitcoin, they'll say, yeah, you know, people value Apple stock, you know, but it doesn't mean that it's cash. No one will give you Apple stock for services or goods. Well, now they can, if they go this direction, right? There'll be some regulations around it, I'm sure.
The question is, who
owns it? Who owns it? Yeah, I agree, right?
Right? Like, it's going to probably be a note of one.
Yeah.
Whoever was the issue.
You're right. You're totally right. But that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is, like, tokenizing equities and allowing them to be sort of P2P, if they go that direction, like, you will see cash disappear overnight. No one is going to want cash for almost anything if you can give them Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Google stock, Bitcoin, or whatever.
You're not buying Nvidia or Google or whatever with cash right now. It's still very much electronic. It's with your bank. You move it to your.
What's the different? Yeah, but if you tokenize, I'm saying.
Cash is a totally different thing. Cash is slowly dwindling in terms of usage. Less people are using it now than it was 10 years ago.
Okay, so I'm not necessarily talking physical cash. Okay, we can talk about bank account tokens.
Or you're talking about just general cash having like money in your.
Like, why? Like, who's taking currency, CAD, for anything if they could have Apple stock instead? I'm leaning on Apple stock here, but it's sort of representative of the
now. It goes to the question: is it going to be taxed the same way as a commodity, the same way?
It's a good question. That's what I don't know, right?
If it is, then very few people are going to use it as a medium of exchange because that's an administrative headache. If you're going to adhere to the letter of the law of the land, and if that's the case, you convert to cash, use that, and then you don't.
What's Fink want? We got to find out what Fink wants, right?
I don't understand how much power this guy has.
All of it. All of it.
I still don't get it. I mean, Bitcoin should make this guy irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like, it should make this guy a footnote in financial history.
A lot of money over there, Len. A lot of influence.
It's a lot of money, but what could he do if you're holding on to a worthless piece of paper in the end? If they as a company, they manage a whole bunch of things, but really that has to be converted into Bitcoin somehow to make them worthwhile moving forward. I think. I don't know. I don't give a fuck about Larry Fink. I don't. Me neither.
It's just interesting. It's an interesting thought experiment, right? Like, equities over CAD or US dollars.
Well, this SAB 121. This is the banks that could custody Bitcoin came out this week. The SEC decided to rescind that order, and there's a discussion going on in one of the chats we're in, Joey, and it was discussing, does this make ETFs, a Bitcoin ETF, obsolete? Because now you could simply just buy with the bank and have them hold it. So management fees are pretty much identical. If you look at typical management fees for holding onto gold, for instance, versus ETF, the gold ETF. So you look at this, it's just another offering. I don't know how big a deal this is in the end. It just gives them the opportunity to hold Bitcoin. And they're insolvent. Banks already are insolvent. Would you trust them to hold on to your fucking keys if you had the option? Hell no. So why would anybody even use this as an option when it comes to Bitcoin? I could kind of figure out why you want to use the ETF, because there's those tax advantage accounts. Like in Canada, we have the TFSA or RSP. But why would anybody want to use the bank when you could just?
It's terrible. It's actually even worse than that.
Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right. And you could even go a step further. The reason you would hold the ETF is the tax advantage for sure, but also because it's easier to sell back to CAD in the ETF than it would be going to the bank and doing a transaction. It's actually crazy how much nonsense paperwork the bank makes you do for the most mundane things. I'll give you an example. Last week I had to go to the bank because I received a letter from TD saying that a bank draft that I drew up in 2018 had not been cashed 7 years ago. Okay. So they waited 7 years to tell me, number one. I drew up a bank draft. My wife and I will meet
somebody
when we moved in. Okay. So this is a long story, but I'll tell you. In 2016, my wife and I moved in together. And before we moved in, I went to a lawyer and had him draw up what the millennials would call a no-nup. Okay. So I don't want my wife to have access to any of my savings, any of my investments, any of my retirement funding. I don't want anything to do with a court battle if we have a falling out. And the other big thing was that if we buy the house together, then the house is sold if there's a split in the relationship. No one's buying me out. No one's getting bought out. The house is getting sold. That's all there is to it. Sold, split down the middle. So I went to this lawyer, had him draw it up, and he sent me the first draft. And when I showed it to my wife, we went through it together, and there was tons of mistakes, tons of mistakes in it. Not only in the content and what I asked for in terms of like the actual legality of the thing, but little shit like names, dates, my address, all this stuff. He didn't pay any attention to what I told him. And so I emailed him and said, we're not going to be using him anymore, and thanked him for his time. He sent me an invoice for, I think, about $1,000. And I decided that I wasn't going to pay it. And then when his office was getting ready to close, he was retiring, I understand. They sent me another email and said, look, you still owe this money. We're going to send to collections if you don't pay. So I wrote him a letter, and I wrote him a $350 bank draft. We gave him a $350 bank draft. And I said, you really should the bet on the service, and the product was subpar, but I do appreciate that your time is not free. And so I want to meet you in the middle here. I'll assume if I don't hear from you again that this matter is closed. And so I never heard from the guy again until the last week. Get this letter
from the bank.
From the bank. I heard from him. Yeah, that bank draft could be sitting on his fucking backseat
mantle
in his car or something. Yeah. And so he never cashed it. And so I went to the bank to
he Ricky Henderson that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
He fucking Ricky. He put it in his wall.
So I went to the bank to get the money back, and I was there for almost half an hour, Len, signing my name on document after document, telling them the authentication code on my phone. They were sending me these text messages to make sure it was me, asking me where I live now and about the bank draft and about the service rendered and all this other tons of shit for $350. Can you imagine what they would ask you for if you wanted to sell or send Bitcoin that they were holding? How long a process that would be? Could you imagine?
Just running this in my head at the time too, that was worth almost 10% of a Bitcoin at the low around that time. Like it's an incredible amount.
It was a lot.
I mean, I know it's a totally different topic altogether. Certainly the banks are very inefficient with the way they do things.
That's all they know.
Your time, theirs.
Also, bank tellers not as hot as they used to be either, which is another downside. Going to the bank used to mean at least you get like a decent looking bank teller. So, don't throw your tomatoes. I don't give a shit what you think. Joey's being a jerk off. No, fuck you. The banks used to at least be fun for those reasons, right? And now they're just not fun at all. And there's nothing fun at the bank. Nothing. You wait in lines. You sign paperwork. No one's talking. The music's shit. They got a running billboard behind them or TV with all the advertising about how they're all pursuing carbon neutral shit, and interest rates are
Did it
sky
persuade you
high. Interest
to
rate
buy
on your
it
savings
into?
account 0.05%.
Yeah,
Sign up
I
today.
want a bond. I want a
Fucking
5-year right now.
shoot
Damn
me.
it.
GICs in pictures of kids in a field with a dog. GICs get you into a fucking food bank if they got food for you when you get there, of course. But broadly speaking, banks just absolute nightmare. Terrible. Absolutely fucking brutal.
You know,
Yeah, Mark in the
think
chat,
about
they're
it.
like sloths. It's so true. It's honestly unbelievable that the banks. This is the other funny thing, right?
Oh wait, but I just want to go back. If
Yeah.
imagine if you just sent Bitcoin and you could verify it was sent and it's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
That's it. That is so simple. You
And
wanted
that
him to
guy
get
probably would have
paid.
been happier too. You know, he
You
didn't
would
even
have
get the
got
money.
1/10 of a Bitcoin
Yeah.
at this, and
He
it'd be
didn't
worth
even
around
get the
10K
money.
US.
Yeah. He didn't even get the money. Fucking brutal. I
Right.
couldn't believe it. I could not believe. Like just the two things that were big for me was the amount of paperwork I had to sign, over $350. But the other thing, Len, that bank draft is 7 years old. You waited 7 years to tell me that no one cashed it? 7 years.
They had to make sure.
What if it was no, you know what the problem is, Len? That money is collecting interest for them somehow, some way, for sure. I don't know how, I don't know what the mechanism is, but for sure, they're not just letting that money float in the ether for that long. And so that's why they wait super
That's
long.
how they're going to remain solvent. So when there's a bank run, they're going to be holding on to a bunch of people's bank drafts worth $350, and that's going to be able to keep their heads above water. So this might be their way of just mitigating any bank runs.
Unbelievable.
Don't process these,
Anyway, so
these bank
if
drafts.
you need the name of a lawyer who won't take your money, let me know.
He's retired.
He's the only guy on the planet who won't take the money you sent.
But he's retired. I think he's retired.
Yeah,
so like,
I think he's retired now. Yeah.
He's long gone.
Anyway, okay, so SAB 121. The thing that this is important for two reasons. The holding your Bitcoin thing is one piece. People can go to the bank to hold Bitcoin. You know, before SAB 121, there used to be a rule that if you held Bitcoin, you had to hold it how? As a liability. So you had to collateralize that liability with more cash or more fixed income, whatever, or more fixed securities, fixed income securities. What are they called? I forget. Bonds or whatever. Treasury notes, short-term loans, whatever. And banks were just like, no, we can't do that. The Bitcoin we're getting now is not $3,000 of Bitcoin. It's $100,000 of Bitcoin. We can't, how am I supposed to hold this and have to, collateralize it at 2 to 1 or 1.5 to 1? Those rules were all different. Not to mention that the big thing with SAB 121 was that even the banks that wanted to do it and collateralize it were told under the table, you better not, because if you do, the scrutiny that we're going to put on your head is going to be something that you're not ready for. It's going to cause problems for your operation. It's going to cause problems for your mental health. And so all these things were going on. So I'm happy to see this repealed or on its way to repealed. Fantastic. It's great.
Whatever. It's
directionally signpost thinking.
Yeah.
Directionally, this is a good thing.
The one big thing, I don't care about strategic reserve. I don't care about even countries mining Bitcoin. I mean, to a degree, I care about that one. But I think the big one is not having be subjected to taxes, like capital gains taxes,
de minimis taxes. Yeah.
Like when you have that removed, that is going to be monumental. Then you basically say, yeah, it could be used as a medium of exchange without all the fucking headaches that go along with it right now. So Roger Ver would agree with that one, I think.
Former U.S. citizen Roger Ver now asking for a pardon, even though he renounced his citizenship. Whoops. A bit of a mistake there, Raj.
So who the heck was it? Jameson Lopp he wrote up something interesting today on him. He said the problem with this is that he may have renounced his citizenship, but he had to have paid an exit tax. And when he left the United States at the time, he said his Bitcoin holdings were 0. And so even though he may have been living in a different country all this time and renounced his citizenship and all that jazz, still there's the thing, he didn't pay his exit tax. So that goes to show you, if you have Bitcoin and you don't pay that, they could come after you later on and just fuck with you, especially if there's an extradition treaty between the country where you're living in and the country which you've left. So do your research if you're going to not do that.
Do your research.
Thorchain, do your research, yes. Thorchain, you heard about the shitcoin project, Joy?
Frozen, insolvent. Lock it down.
Yeah. They're unable to meet their obligations, their financial obligations.
That's what I say to my wife when it's my turn to do the chores. I'm unable to meet my obligations.
They were offering yield on like Bitcoin and ETH and other things too. Like the question, like, how do you get yield? especially on Bitcoin too, right? I don't
What
get
could it
it.
be?
I mean, whatever. So a lot of questions, I guess, will never get answered because this thing is insolvent. At least, I mean, they're trying their best to keep this thing alive. I don't fucking care. But it leads me to the next thing. This is the one I really want to talk about. And I'm going to dust off an old segment of the show, which is a no coiner. And because the no coiner of the week, which is this Fred Krueger guy, which he was.
Oh God.
Is there a better no coiner of the week than this motherfucker?
No,
Because he was out there and he was pushing this thing. I have no idea. I muted this motherfucker a long time ago, but this guy was able to get on prominent podcasts. People, a slick talker. Maybe he's a PhD in whatever the fuck he's in, whatever the fuck. But you could be a smart dude. You could have a silver tongue, but still the message. If you can't fucking see through it and see the guy's fucking selling you snake oil, you're fucked. And there's a lot of people like
this. He even wrote a Bitcoin book, Len. He even wrote a Bitcoin book.
That deserves to be never bought. Just let it fucking collect dust. This guy deserves no royalties. On top of all that, then he released a shitcoin this past week. I have no idea what the fuck it was, but apparently he rugged people for to like $1 million. I don't know.
Didn't exactly he do it? I thought he did it twice. Wasn't it
even twice now? Okay, it's twice the no coiner of the week. Actually, 3 times, including his association with Thorchain. Why? Like, people out there, they have to they got to do their due diligence when you're dealing with people like this. He doesn't deserve the airtime. I don't understand how he has that many metal followers. I still don't know how the fuck he got on all these shows. Like people just, I hope he disappears, but unfortunately he's still going to stick around. For whatever reason, he's still, quote unquote, a prominent member of the community. How? Even though with his association with all this garbage, he's still around. Fuck him. Like, I hope he goes into the obscurity and is never heard of again. Don't buy his books. Don't listen to him. Mute his fucking thing. Don't give him any fucking airtime. Don't give him any views on his Twitter account, because then he's going to get X account. He's going to get paid for this. Just fucking let him rot. He could just fucking rot in hell after this. Just fucking him. Fuck him.
You want to know how he got all those followers, all those views?
I don't know. I'll
tell you how.
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how.
He got them because, much like we've seen in the content space over the last year or so, everyone has gone to this brain rot slot model of Moon Boy commentary. And so you see it in titles, you see it in thumbnails, you see it all over the place. 1 trillion, this giant, that giant, 1.2 trillion. He's buying Bitcoin. He's sending Bitcoin to the moon. I mean, it's all bullshit. It's low IQ trafficking nonsense, right? Fine. We're never going to do that, by the way, on this program. No fucking way. But when you look at his content, it is the same in theme, even if it's just a little higher brow in terms of visuals and production. And so when he gets on these Bitcoin First spaces, which I've tuned into, he gets on other podcasts, he gets on various sort of one-off debates about stuff like the power law with Giovanni, stuff like MSTR with Punter Jeff and Raquant, stuff like, you name it, XYZ. And the commentary is always the same, right? We're going to 1 million. Nothing can stop it. You need to get on. Here's why you're right. Here's why you're right. Here's why you're right. Here's why you're over and over and over again. This is the thing. It's like, it's this constant sort of dopamine tickle, right? And your brain likes it. And if you're into that sort of unrelenting, just bullish narrative all the time, nonstop, then that's your guy, right? The same way that, a lot of channels, I've mentioned them on the show before. I'm not going to do it now. A lot of channels do the same shit on YouTube, right? They just pump out the same garbage all the time. The titles are all the same. You can go, if you type in like Bitcoin on YouTube, the likelihood that you see 10 thumbnails that look basically the same with titles that look basically the same with all caps letters, basically in the same, like, you're going to see it. Kruger was doing the same thing, and it works. There's no doubt about it. It works. The question is, what kind of audience do you get? And the other question is, what kind of person does that? Well, in this case, we know that both were subpar and definitely not as high quality as you would hope in Bitcoin, which is terrible because, he's like an old man. Like, why? Like, this is the direction you want to go? A guy who claims to be so accomplished, worked on Wall Street, worked at banks, worked in universities, he's got a PhD, as he always says, right? Doc, as the the MSTR guys call them. You know, you're so accomplished, you had to rug pull a bunch of people. I think not once, but twice. Maybe once for sure, but maybe twice. I forget. And then as people called you out on it, you just made a video saying how you did it, but didn't actually explain to people why or how much money you made.
He's a
or
fiat maximalist to do this.
He's a con artist is what he is. He's a con artist. He
I
took a
would
lot
say-
of money from a lot of people. And if he doesn't give it back, then that's all you need to know. Right. And so, you know, a guy like that with the thick rim glasses and that chair that all these rich guys have and the clickbait titles and the clickbait thumbnails and the moon boy, that's what you get. That's the kind of audience you get too, right? These are the same retards, you know, who buy the
Somebody's
coin,
asking for
listen to the
Stockpile Sailor.
Yeah, fuck, no, we're not talking.
No, Sailor didn't wrong anybody.
But it's just like,
Maybe,
you know, this is the I think this is the story of the cycle, right? This whole Moon Boy theme. And I want to shout out one channel, Pleb Underground, Coin Icarus, and I think the other guy's name is Walton. Those guys do pretty good content. I listen to it as often as I can. They never Moon Boy. Guys like Robin Sayer, even, you know, he's starting to Moon Boy a little bit. It's just like even Beat C Sessions. Beat C Sessions could do anything with his content. He never Moon Boys. You know, he's doing tutorials. He's doing Why Are We Bullish? He's doing some new stuff. He's never baiting you into something with a huge number and a Bitcoin's going to $1 trillion. But Kruger was doing that basically. And that's, you know, when you have a guy doing that, this is the outcome you can expect. People who are dumb enough to buy the token, people who are dumb enough to watch, and a guy who's just barely smart enough to make it, you know, look like he's got plausible deniability in the whole thing. I was just doing a test. I was just showing how easy it was. We'll give the money back then. No, I don't think so. Okay. Well, that's the whole story.
You know, one thing you just mentioned in it with these two tokens, I think 1 million tokens a week are being minted. That's according to Brian
Coinbase,
Armstrong.
right? Are we talking about Coinbase now? Is that where we're going here?
No.
Coinbase wants to crowdsource the token approval process. They want to stop reviewing every token because there's so many being approved or being minted now. He wants it to be basically a free for all. Total degeneracy everywhere.
Oh, see, at one point they were saying that they only wanted tokens that were like there wasn't 50% held by a particular entity.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's a pre-mine and
they had some rules, right? Rules, yeah.
So they're following, like they're chasing the money here as much as possible. But this is a sign that looks like the market is just a fevered pitch. Could it be that we're now this is the all-time high for this cycle? I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's going to go down. I don't know what's going to happen. But when you look at it, 1 million tokens being issued or minted every week, all garbage. There's no fundamentals. There's nothing along. It's just, and these ETFs, there's something like 15 ETFs a week that are being submitted that are related to directly or indirectly to Bitcoin. This is something that's, I look at it, it's like, man, oh man, this is unsustainable. And eventually there's going to be a lot of interest lost in it. It's going to be going somewhere else. Plus, you know, just what we saw with this new AI, what's it called? Deep
Seek or something?
DeepSeek. That's thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Like, could you imagine like just somebody releasing an app and it impacts the market to that degree? Like, how fragile is the market that an application could come out there? Granted, I mean, there's maybe some merit here, but still, like, just one application could just take
what is the merit?
Hundreds of billions.
Yeah, like it's crazy. You're right. The thing is, I think you said this with me and Mark today, right? I think you wrote that like this whole thing is just a house of cards. Clearly, 16% on Nvidia today. How many? Like, what is the Nvidia weighting in the S&P ETFs? Is it 20%?
Wow,
10%?
I didn't even.
What is it?
It goes to show you what's the level of conviction of the Nvidia investors. If something comes out that like this, and there's still lots we have to learn.
So Nvidia in the S&P 500. This is VFV. This is the ETF that I use when I buy the index. It's 7%, exceeded only by Apple, which is 7.6%. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a big weight. That's a really big weight.
So
and those are price agnostic buyers, right? So people are not selling the ETF because Nvidia goes down. It's probably the opposite, right? Those people just buy on repeat on a schedule. So
I just want to go back. Like, how paper handed are these individuals once this thing comes out and they say, fuck, I'm just going to sell whatever cost, whatever price it is. I want out. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to hold it anymore. Like with respect to Bitcoin, I can guarantee you if it goes even to like that's $10,000 tomorrow, like if it drops literally 90% tomorrow morning, I am not fucking selling. I'll buy some more and I'll be happy doing it. That's the level of conviction I have. Of course, nobody has. I mean,
do your own research. We don't know your particular financial situation.
I don't fucking care. This is just me.
Advice.
No, it's not. I'm not saying anything. Just this is my opinion. This is what I'm doing. So I mean, I'm just trying to say, like, I don't know if people have that about Nvidia. Oh, if it drops 90%, I'm still gonna fucking hold on to it, and I'm gonna buy some more because there's only a certain amount of fucking shares in existence. They're not gonna mint anymore, and I can hold on to my own shares. I can verify it. No, you can't. There's none of this shit. It's fucking possible. It's like, fuck that.
Never forget the Nvidia CEO signed some girl's boob at a press event like 4 months ago.
Oh,
that might have been the top. Is there such thing as a top sign? That might be one.
Yeah, there you go. So what I'm trying to get at is like the markets in general, and including Bitcoin. Who knows what's going to happen with the price, and it could really take a tumble. And I think somebody posted an Arthur Hayes article. I don't know if it was you or somebody else.
Me and Mark were talking about it in our chat too. Yeah.
And he was saying that it could potentially go down. You can see the 75. All this price talk of where he thinks things can go, or who the hell knows? But I'm just trying to say, just the way I'm looking at things, I don't know. It's possible we could see a pullback. As to what price, I don't know what the fuck it could pull back to. But obviously, there's people. You just release something, and hundreds of billions of dollars is lost in one particular company about market value. Like things aren't looking good.
Why? Like what? We're due for a like significant drawdown. There's no sign anywhere that the economy is healthy here, United States, any European country, UK, you name it. Like. So when the question is like, when is it not? It's not if, it's when. The up and to the right thing is nuts. I saw this great chart the other day of sort of the distance from the mean during some of the biggest bubbles. You had the 08 bubble, the dot-com bubble, and now the Mag 7 is like literally 7 times higher than even the closest second place bubble. And so
it's telling sign.
You know, it's again, AI chip, middle-aged CEO signing some C-cup tit at a press event is a top sign. That is a top sign.
You know, going back, the dot-com bubble.
I cannot think of it. When the history books reflect on this period, okay, it's going to be Sam Altperson from OpenAI trying to take the company private and pull up the ladder on the legislation. It's going to be NVIDIA guy signing a boob. It's going to be, I think Saylor will be in there too, fucking probably with this, you know, equity issuance. I don't know.
People visiting islands. Joey, the dot-com thing, when it blew up, is because it ran out of steam, right? Like it blew up on its own and it just ran out of steam on its own. 2008, mortgage-backed securities and all this, like it was just, it was bound to fail. Since then, we haven't had something on its own force a market correction. The 2020 was an external factor. They had to shut down the world in order to make that drop, right? So whatever that was, it's whatever ticking time bomb is still there is waiting to go off. It hasn't yet gone off, and it's approaching 20 years since we've last had the last blow up on its own. So that I'm just waiting. What the fuck is it going to be? Because there's some crack in the system somewhere.
Don't forget, some people that think this is done now. The business cycle is done now because of fiscal dominance. They'll print out of it and nominally, you know. So I you know, maybe that is the case. Maybe the recessions are only for people who are digging into the data, and everyone else is just wondering why the Campbell's soup is so much more money. Yeah, maybe that's what happens next, right? I don't know.
All I can say is I want more sats tomorrow than I have today.
Yeah,
that's all I care about in terms of my finances. Totally. That's it. So you know what? Let's just end it. We're an hour in.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone. If you're here on video, enjoying the show live, hang in. We're not going anywhere. If you're on audio, stay tuned for the back half tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves.
And unfollow and mute Fred Krueger.
59 minutes, 42 seconds. That was good. That was a lot of content there. Yeah. We are just getting started.
Let's talk about.
Should we play the funeral music?
No, we don't want to get. We lost. No. Let's just talk about Chandra right off the fucking bat. Okay. People who are unaware, if United States or anywhere else, like we have a leadership that's going on right now. Whoever is going to be elected the Liberal leader of Canada, it's going to be the Prime Minister temporarily until the next election. One guy submitted his name, provided all the necessary information. He got the minimum amount of signatures, $450,000 Canadian. He had to pony up in order to be included in the race.
Yeah.
Sure, he doesn't speak French. His English may not be the strongest. But if you look at just what he is in terms of, he's a Liberal MP. He's been there for a decade, give or take, as an elected official. How is this individual good enough to be a member of Parliament, to represent his constituents, to fly under the Liberal banner, but yet he's not good enough to run for leadership? I don't know. NFL games are rigged. Is the same thing happening here? Right? Like, why take him out? It doesn't make sense. Trending on Twitter, a lot of people were using him as a meme vote, whatever. It doesn't matter. The rules were put in place. People were abiding by the rules.
Totally.
They're signing up, doing whatever they want. This guy ran. Why can't he run? It's fucking bullshit.
Why. You know why.
I know why. But it's still, it makes me fume when an individual has every right to run, but is not given the opportunity to run. It's an injustice. It's bullshit. And unfortunately, it's not going to be reversed. It's going to be, this is a club, and if they want to kick them out, they can, but it just shows their cards on what they're trying to do here. In the past, we've had other big players that we thought were going to win. They ended up not winning. In 2006, 2007, when the Liberals ran a leadership, 2007, I think it was, Stéphane Dion was not supposed to win that one. He did. He was made kingmaker by who the heck was it? Gerald, I forget his name. Gerald Kennedy. That's it. Ignatieff was supposed to win that one, but he didn't. It was Stéphane Dion. And Ontario, if you remember, Sandra Pupatello, if you remember that name, she was supposed to win, but it was Kathleen Wynne ended up winning that. So sometimes you have the odds-on favorite. For whatever reason, they don't win the nomination. So in this case, I'm looking at Carney being the guy they're saying he's going to win. I think this is going to rub people the wrong way, this latest move, and it may just backfire in terms of Carney's campaign. He may not become the leader of the Liberal Party. Fucking pathetic that they're doing this. This guy, Chandra Arya, he deserved every right to run.
Yeah.
To take him out, and without giving an official reason.
But we know why. We know why.
I could read. I think the official reason is going to be that they want him to speak French.
Carney, I think that's what they're. Carney speaks French like I speak French.
His French is far better than Chandra's. Also, Chandra in public I guess it was CBC. Whatever.
Yeah, he said he couldn't speak French. He said he couldn't.
And he said it's not a big deal. He says they got it. Basically, I don't want to say he gave it the middle finger, but it kind of like in a way. So because of that, they could use that as the excuse. He can't run. But every other thing he met, the signatures, the minimum signatures, he paid. Fuck, he's a fucking Liberal MP. If he can run as an MP, why can't he run as leader? It's not like me just coming off the street and they can say you're an outsider. You have no right. Okay, I could get that. But he's not. He's one of them. Right? He's part of that team. He's been part of it for a decade. It's not like he's even a newcomer to that team. They vetted him, and I'm willing to bet he even has secret clearance, given the fact they're talking about.
Sure, he does.
So he does. Yeah. I don't think there's anything in his background that I'm just assuming here. I have nothing to prove this, but just my assumption. There's nothing in his background because he must have gotten secret clearance. So, what's the reason, man? I don't know.
They want to install Carney. The Liberal Party is crooked and deceitful. and this is obvious now to anyone with half a brain, Carney is such a weak candidate that they had to get rid of this guy because of the groundswell support he was getting. I will admit that the support he was getting was not in good faith. I see on Twitter huge accounts that were responsible for really upending the liberal narrative during COVID, throwing their support behind this guy. Accounts like Golden Pup, among others, talking about how we got to support this guy. So much so that the liberal website crashed yesterday during this groundswell. That's one thing. Second thing, Len, that guy would have won not only the liberal leadership race, but do you think he would have had a chance of winning the election?
His stance on a lot of things
is pretty right wing. Yeah,
I would say
he's also Indian. Lots of Indians now in this country who would probably vote. Like it's hard for me to imagine that guy. Yeah.
He's almost a blue liberal, almost.
You're damn right. The
way he's like, maybe he could come out and say all this stuff. Very much different where the current party has been trending, and I don't know. Is it possible? Who knows? But what? Another thing I forgot to mention. If they disqualified him from the beginning, if he filed his paperwork and say the day of or next day, sorry, you can't run, it would suck. But
it's easier to swallow, though. Yeah.
Then have him sit there for 2 weeks, and then the day before it closes, say, "Sorry, bud."
The day he gets all the support, they toss him.
He did all this work.
Yep.
His hopes were fucking high, and his emotions dangled.
Yeah.
And
as a registered member of the Liberal Party, I'm disappointed that my party has gone. I'm looking forward to throwing my support behind Ruby.
You go to Ruby Della.
I'm looking forward to throwing my support behind her.
Interesting.
She has my full support. She's the official candidate of the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast.
No. I can't say that I support her or anybody else. I like Chandra in a way, but he's not there, so I have no. He's your guy.
We got to vote for we have to vote this is the thing, okay? The Liberal Party has learned no lessons from any of this. It's clear to me at this point, right? They've learned no lessons. They have a candidate who is as insider as they come. His autograph is on the $20 bill. Okay. Like he's inside. This is as inside as they come. He doesn't speak French particularly well. Okay. He has no policy differences from the Trudeau government. He was the economic advisor to the Trudeau government and now is claiming that he's an economic mastermind and has saved countries. I went through this last week. He was the Bank of England governor. Things got so bad that Brexit passed. Okay. He was the Bank of Canada governor in 2008. He postponed the financial crisis to the tune of, whatever we're in now, this incredible housing bubble, one for the ages, the most expensive housing anywhere that's not Manhattan or the Palisades. And, he's being pushed on not only the party, but the Canadian public vis-a-vis the media as this guy who's, coming to save the day. He comes in at the top all the time, right? This guy doesn't work his way up. He doesn't flip the burger. He just becomes the key holder right away. That's what this guy's about. The votes for Arya Chandra, is that his name? Arya Chandra?
Chandra Arya.
One of the two. The votes for him they're not because people want to see this guy as the prime minister. They are because people want to send a message that the Liberal Party seems to be unwilling to receive, no matter how loud and no matter how in your face and tangible. We are tired of your policy positions. We are tired of the faces of the franchise. We are tired of the same old shit. And so the Liberals, instead, what do? They run Karina Gold, who's my age. Like she is just so unaccomplished and carried so much water for that administration that it's unbelievable she thinks she can even win. Though at least part of me thinks she's more planning for the future. Different story. Freeland, who is as close to Trudeau as they come, and Mark Carney, who's, advising Trudeau through all these terrible economic decisions, presumably, and certainly would have taken credit for them if given the opportunity and if things had gone a different way. They don't get the message. Canadians are trying to send a message. And now you got these fake polls coming out where, they're fucking polling. They went from polling at 0 seats to polling at 39% in Ontario with the CPC polling at fucking 41 or something like that. Who's running that poll? Who are they? Are they calling Karina Gold, Mark Carney, Krista Freeland, and Mark Miller? Like, who are they calling?
I got a text. Somebody was asking who I was going to vote for. I never replied.
Oh, you
but they're going, no, why? As soon as you reply back, then they keep hammering you with bullshit. But they're out there trying to get information on voters and which way and how
brutal.
How forthcoming are you going to be with the information? Right?
I would tell them right away for sure. I'm actually considering. Yeah, I'm actually considering going to like a liberal. I'm actually considering going as a CBP boots on the ground report to a liberal, meetup rally of some kind in my area. There will for sure be one. I live in a big enough area.
Who's the former mayor that's now a Liberal MP in there? He was a mayor of Hamilton up until about a decade ago.
Really?
He was. And then he left the mayor to become an MP in Hamilton.
Recent mayors of Hamilton, Fred Eisenberger. You're gonna look it up? I don't know who else. It's obviously it's Horwath right now. So she was an NDP MPP.
Yeah, and going through the list, it's gonna be brutal.
But I don't.
You guys
had
a lot of mayors. Jesus.
Oh yeah,
Bob Bertina, is that it? Yeah,
Bob Bertina was the mayor. That's right. Yeah. God, what a nightmare that was. He was a terrible politician.
Yeah, he went on to be the Liberal member of Parliament for the riding of Hamilton East. Oh, he left in 2021. My bad. I thought he was still there.
No.
So
that was when Horvath took over. Yeah. So there you go. Like I want to go and just ask, dyed in the wool liberals, if someone's giving enough time, if someone's giving time out of their day to go to a rally or go to a campaign event, I want to know, what do you think about Carney? What do you think about the Aria thing? What do you think about all that stuff? Tell me, give me the lowdown. Tell me what you think about all this.
There's a possibility one of two things are going to happen here. Maybe both. It's a possibility. But Aria, I would suspect the Conservative Party are now courting him to jump ship.
For sure.
Given the fact where he stands in terms of his policies, and he's disenfranchised, I think, with the party itself, they could lure him in and say, look, we'll give you a seat, blah, blah, blah. Nothing aside from that. It's just longevity. Yeah. So that's one. He could switch. The second, by doing this move too, I could be way off base here, but whatever supporters liberals had left from the Indian community, they may look at this and say, they're going to do this to one of our own. Yeah. And then so they.
How do you feel? How do you feel if you're an Indian today? You have been shunned by the party. Basically, they refuse to support you in terms of your immigration goals. Now, the guy who shares your heritage, for better or worse, I have my own opinions on that. Obviously, maybe considers himself to be someone who Indian Canadians or Indian soon-to-be Canadians or Indian hopeful Canadians can vote for, is trounced by the party with no real rationale, reason, certainly nothing transparent. That's a big chunk of the population. It's almost like in the States, right? Where, in the US, the Democrats imported tons of Hispanics and Latinos and Latinas over the course of, 15 years and hoped that they would be just consistent left-wing voters. And they really started sliding to the right. If that happens in Canada too, and this is the catalyst, man, look at what a mess.
I'm wondering then, could they also go to the NDP party? If you're left leaning, number one, we're former, or you kind of could support the Liberal Party, you don't for whatever reason. Could you look at the NDP and say, maybe I'll support them? I'm just wondering if I think the first is probably more likely of him switching parties, crossing the floor. The second, it's more just I'm throwing a dart and seeing if it hits anything, but it's possible. And it's a very interesting situation. And one thing of note is you haven't heard anything from Polyev, and I think there's a reason why. He's holding on to this information for when it comes time to a debate. Then he could bring this up. Why bring it up now?
Yeah,
it makes no sense. But he could bring it up then and say inclusion, diversity, all this stuff. And finally, you have a candidate that checks off a lot of these boxes, and you still don't let him run. Why? And it's just an inside. It reminds me, in that respect too, it reminds me what happened with Turner when he took over from Pierre Elliott Trudeau. and then also Justin Trudeau also today was reported is going to be appointing a bunch of senators and stuff like that. And that also reminds me what happened with Pierre Trudeau when they did a transition to John Turner. So history is repeating itself again.
Often rhymes, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Kingston, Ontario. Let's go on to this story here. Kingston, Ontario.
Sure.
I hope anybody in Canada heard of Kingston. It used to be the capital of Canada one time.
Kingston, by the way, to do a little callback to something we were doing the other day, the home of the Frontenacs hockey team.
That came from the past week, right? Yeah, I totally forgot that. We're doing a little more. Anyways, so they're saying there's a food problem going on in Kingston. Kingston is not a small town. It's a decent sized city, right? Like it's big enough. It has an OHL team. It's a stop on the 401. It was a capital of Canada one time.
They have an on route there, I'm pretty sure.
At least one. Well, probably one. So recently declared a food insecurity emergency because they say that there's not enough food to go around. 1 in 3, or roughly 1 in 3 households in Kingston are experiencing food shortages or insecurity. People are having difficulties making ends meet despite relying on social assistance. So social assistance programs aren't providing them with enough to maintain their caloric intake. And also of note is they're saying low wages are also contributing to this because it's driving up the cost of living, but also making them unattainable or unaffordable for. So that's another problem with just a Canadian dollar that has been wrecked. All currencies have been wrecked, but wages aren't keeping up with real cost, real inflation. So man, you see this. I don't think I've ever would even expected something like this, where 1/3 of households in a decent sized city in Canada would be experiencing this. This is sad, man. Like it's only going to get worse. It's not next year. It's going to be 1 in 4. It's going to be 1/2, and I don't say next year, but in the not too distant futures, the percentage is just going to continually get worse. And Kingston is it's not an isolated city. I think that other cities are having the same type of bullshit. It's going to be reported. We talk about this a lot. It's pretty depressing.
But it's proliferating, right? It's spreading. You see it all over the place now. We expect to see it in big cities first because that's where wage suppression hits the hardest, right? The cost of living goes up because your rent goes up, your mortgage goes up, the cost of homes goes up, all that stuff. But your wages don't keep up. And so you see these stories about food insecurity popping up in places like Toronto, Vancouver, even Hamilton, right? Hamilton's got 700,000 people, something like that. But you don't expect to see it in a place like Kingston, which is, like you said, most famous for its 401 stop. Boomer pointing out in the chat, it's the home of the Tragically Hip too. Great band. I saw them on Canada Day at Downsview Park. I saw them on Canada Day at Downsview Park one time. All-time concert. I've been to a lot of concerts. That's an all-timer. Story for another time. Kingston is a smallish town where presumably there's not a lot of the same pressures you would see in a big city. And now you're starting to see this pop up there, food insecurity. Signpost, buddy. More than anything else, signpost. If you can't move from a bigger town to Kingston for relief on the financial side of your life, where can you move? Where are you going to go? There's not many places lower on the food chain than Kingston where you could still find a reasonable job or be within driving distance to a larger area for work. And so if you can't do that, then what's the plan after? Like, where are you going? What's next on your list? What's the lowest or the next lowest rung on your ladder? I don't know. Is it fucking Keswick? You going to Keswick? You going to, where are you going?
That's not
going to the, I don't know. What is industry like in the WIC? My guess is not great. I worked in the WIC at a golf course for a summer. A lot of nice people there. Not too many of them very industrious. And so you got to ask yourself, where are these people from Kingston who are in food insecure? Where are they going to go?
Northern Ontario, where things are even cheaper.
But it's worse up there. It's worse.
No, I'm not trying to make light of this. I mean, it sucks, right? It fucking. what's going to happen? We need more programs to support these folks, but who's going to pay for that? We don't have money as it is. We're paying for weapons to be sent to some foreign country that's fighting a war.
Weapons, feminist education in the third world, like all sorts of, again, this is not to say these are worthy or unworthy causes in a perfect world, but we are far from that. And these causes are far from worthy when this is going on at home. And
on top of that, you have the pending threat of tariffs being put on. You saw what Colombia did.
Tariffism. You get some tariffism around here.
Tariffism. And Colombia, they were playing chicken with them, and they flinched pretty damn fast.
That was crazy. What a crazy story.
So what's going to happen when the same thing is threatened for Canada? They're saying it's just around the corner before they implement this. And all you hear from the people that are in charge, oh, we're going to stop sending energy. We have plans in place and blah, blah, blah. Like, really? Like, who do we trade with the most? The United States. We rely heavily on them for a lot of our goods. Food, too. Like, let's be honest. In the wintertime, we can't grow fruits and vegetables. We have to, it's got to be imported from somewhere. Some of it comes from California, or Florida, other parts of the world, too. But, right, like, it's just going to get more costly to, like, get shit here. And I don't know. It's just a troubling time. So
the tariff thing, you're right. The tariff thing is interesting. We haven't really talked about it on the show, apart from just sort of headline reading and commentary. But the one thing I've seen over the last week that drives me nuts, and actually I want to talk to Rich Diaz. Rich Diaz is coming on in a week or two, I think, with Keith Dicker. So that'll be a fun show. But before we, go too far down that road, this idea that, and I see like Bruce Arthur and other sort of like politically obsessed midwits talking about how the US needs our oil because Trump was on TV talking about how they don't need our oil. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how the oil thing works. Okay. I'm not an expert. I'm not a, petroleum technician of any kind, but I know a little bit about this whole light crude, sweet, all this other sort of heavies, the different grades. The reason that the US likes our oil is because we aren't equipped to refine the garbage that the Alberta oil sands have available. And so what do? We ship it to the States for a price that makes sense for them and for us in some regard, because the States is equipped to refine that garbage and then sell it at a premium. On top of that, the States also sells the higher grade stuff that is under their soil at a premium around the world and uses our stuff domestically. Like this is how the oil sort of hourglass, the sand through that hourglass goes. So people talking about the US needs our oil, they're never going to do this, no, they don't. The other thing I'll note is that it's not a question of does the US need our oil or is it convenient to get our oil from us? One is much different than the other. It is convenient for them, but the convenience ends there as far as the relationship with Canada. People talk about lumber this, lumber that. Fine, whatever. Okay, these things don't matter that much. The US doesn't need us the way that we need them. Okay. This is something we have to be very clear about. We are not in a position to play hardball with these guys. We will bend the knee the same way Colombia did. Colombia, for people who don't know, refused 2 planes of illegal immigrants that the US sent back, and the US immediately slapped 25% tariffs on them with the threat of them going to 50% after a week. Colombia bent the knee to the tune of accepting planes and offering military planes and their own presidential plane to the US to help bring more people over faster from the United States. That's the power of the hegemon. And I've said before on this show that the hegemon has been sleeping for a long time and it's awake now. Will it stay awake past the 4 Trump years coming up? I don't know. But these 4 years are going to be hard for countries that have been asleep at the wheel, just coasting on US protection, US trade, US all this stuff. It's not going to be easy for us, the same way it wasn't easy for Colombia over the weekend.
It's also not easy if you're Canada Post, because they have gone to the Canadian government and asked for a loan. And they got $1 billion loan to help continue because they have.
This is the goose meme, Len. The goose meme. Where'd the $1 billion come from? Where did the $1 billion come from?
The future. And significant financial challenges are what they're experiencing at Canada Post. So that's why they had to borrow this $1 billion. So they plan to pay it back. That's why it's called a loan. But who knows if they can? If they're borrowing right now, and $1 billion is, it's a lot of zeros. Their financial difficulties right now, and they're saying that the amount of volumes of packages and letters have been steadily going down. And the busy time of year was Christmas. They lost that to a strike. So in terms of recouping whatever they can from last year, like maximizing the amount of revenue, a lot was lost during that strike because it's gone. And then on top of that, the faith people had in the system on Canada Post was somewhat eroded. I'll use myself for example. I had to send out a package 2 weeks ago, and I did so, and I used UPS, FedEx, whatever it was. It wasn't Canada Post. I normally use Canada Post, and even though it might have been a little cheaper, I didn't bother. I said it's not worth it because I know using the other guys, it's going to work. It's going to get there, and I wasn't going to have to deal with a potential strike. And it doesn't seem like there's one looming, but I just don't want to risk it. So, yeah, another $1 billion sent to these guys.
What's the role? What is Canada Post's role? What should it be going forward? What should we do with Canada Post?
I think the one thing they do provide, the one service they provide, which is good, is they service areas which are probably not going to be
rural areas for sure.
Yeah. And I know that's going to be a money loser in the end. Still, mail has to go in and out of those areas. They have to get something. So if you're living in a remote area, it's rough already as it is there in terms of getting stuff. So you have to, so that's it. I think that's the one role for Canada Post moving forward. Beyond that, I don't know if they should provide blanket coverage for the rest of the country. I don't know. You used to be able to buy Bitcoin from them, but now they're struggling, right? Now you have to borrow $1 billion. Before that, they weren't borrowing $1 billion. Maybe they got to fucking open up the doors again to do that.
I don't know. I don't know what the role of Canada Post should be. Part of me, I agree with you that the rural delivery thing is something Canada Post should be doing, because either Canada Post is going to do it or the government is going to pay a third party to do it, and the cost is going to be more significant. So I think that's fine. The thing I'm curious about, and I think about this sometimes when I go to Shoppers Drug Mart to send something out. Like I sent Ripito his shirt, Canada Post. By the way, delayed. So it's like the memes write themselves. Fine.
You should. He's fucking guy.
So I just went to Shoppers Drug Mart. It's in my neighborhood, so I just went there.
I went for a drive. I could have went to Canada Post.
I learned a lesson learned, Len. Lesson learned for sure. But like this is the thing I think Canada Post should consider. Why can't Canada Post be the assistance hub for people who want to send something somewhere? Why do they have to use Canada Post? Why does Canada Post have to offer parcel service, for example? Why not go to Canada Post and let Canada Post help you send your stuff to, from A to B? If it's the best thing to do with FedEx, do with FedEx. If it's the best thing to do it with, with Purelator, do with Purelator. Canada Post could offer sort of same day or next day local deliveries from those hubs, those Shoppers Drug Mart hubs or those regional depots. But, in terms of these huge sorting centers and the day-to-day mail delivery for places like Hamilton, Toronto, Vancouver, I just think it's not long for this world. And it's not only because it's cost prohibitive, but also because people don't get paper mail that often anymore. A lot of paper mail goes right into the garbage. And I appreciate that there's something about paper mail that's fun and whatnot, but I don't think it's going to last. I mean, who's really the target for paper mail these days? It's really the older generations of Canadians. You're on the clock regardless of how you view this. Even if you think Canada Post is sort of this staple, stalwart Canadian pillar, it's just not going to be around for 40 more years, period. Certainly not in its current iteration. So why not start moving to something else? They've yet to adjust. And this is something you see a lot with crown corporations. They don't adjust. They don't offer a premium service. Liquor stores and beer stores are a great example of this recently here in Ontario. when I come home from football on Saturday nights, I like to have a beer or two while I, hang out, whatever, play places. This is, I guess, before I had a kid, unfortunately. Love my daughter, but, life has changed. I used to come home from football and have a beer or two with my buddies and play on PSN. If my game was at 8 or 7 even, I couldn't do it because everything is closed around here at that time. Beer
You
stores
had
and
to
liquor stores.
pre-plan. You had to buy ahead.
But like I don't keep beer in the fridge. I just don't do that. So now if I want to do that, guess what? I can go to a convenience store and the convenience store will sell me 2 cans of beer until 10 o'clock. And
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is
Saturday, Friday, Sunday, it doesn't matter.
Is there a cutoff for selling booze, or is it 24/7?
The beer store is closed at 7 or 8 on weekends.
Right.
But the convenience store will sell to you till 10 p.m.
Okay. I didn't realize that there's a hard cutoff from convenience stores. Okay.
Yeah. So they'll sell it to you till 10 p.m. And for me, that's great. There's a convenience store not far from my house. So if I need to go there, I'll go there. And like the beer store's up in arms about this, the same way that Canada Post is up in arms about FedEx and UPS. Oh, they're slave drivers. They're this, they're that. Yeah, but they pay their guys well. The mail gets there. There's no complaints. I don't have to deal with the snippy shopper's clerk. They have to adjust. And a lot of crown corporations, and I realize Canada Post, you can say it's arm's length or, pseudo crown, whatever terminology you want to use, but they have to adjust and they haven't. And things are changing fast in that sphere, especially. So we'll see what they come up with. But this idea they're going to be doing city mail, I think is very, very, it's a tenuous position to hold that Canada Post needs to be doing door-to-door delivery or even these community box deliveries. They shouldn't need it.
Give it to Amazon. Let them do it.
They do a better job. The Amazon guy shows up in my house. I can order whatever widget I want.
Times a day, depending on what you're ordering.
What do you mean a couple times a day? Now they show up overnight. If I order something that's in the warehouse, it's going to be there when I wake up in the morning.
You are living in the right part of Canada to receive this service, because if you're in Quebec, they closed all 7 of their warehouses over there just recently. So I'm not sure you're going to get that same type of level of service in the province of Quebec.
I don't know. I should note that in the chat for people who are on podcasts, there's Boomer and D and MIX or MLX are talking about the holes in my oil cycle description. So go there. Long and short, there's some thinking that Americans actually need our heavy for some products. So maybe I missed that. But,
I have no idea.
I'm doing my best. I'm a mile wide.
They stopped buying from Venezuela. Right.
Yeah.
So Venezuela has the most oil under their feet, but it's extremely heavy oil. So then if they stop buying it from and they need heavy oil, who else? That's convenient. Canada, right? Pipelines, they have all this shit. So it's able to get it at a decent price without much friction quickly. So maybe they need it. I have no idea.
Even faster and even more friction free if we were the 51st state. But let's not go there. Do you want to do one more story? What else do you want to do?
Well, let's do the Amazon. Like that they closed down their 7 warehouses. 1,700 people in Quebec are going to be losing their jobs. They're saying this is part of a broader cost-cutting strategy that Amazon's employing because they want to provide what they say better savings to customers. But it could also be to the fact that there was some unionization that was going on over there, and it's one way to get around that, so they don't have to deal with that type or that level of, they could say, headaches for Amazon. So like I said, now if you're ordering stuff, Amazon packages, Amazon stuff from the province of Quebec, how long is it going to take to come in? Is if they close those warehouses, does everything come out from outside the province? Does it come from Nova Scotia? Does it come from New Brunswick, Ontario, or even the States? I don't have a fucking clue. But yeah, there you go. 1,700 jobs lost in Quebec. And this is before tariffs come into play. Now you put tariffs on, who the hell knows?
That's a lot of jobs. It's a lot of jobs. You may remember Amazon doing an advertisement, I think during COVID, that was, I don't want to say geared for a French audience, but the guy they were talking to was a Quebecer. And he was talking about how he went from warehouse worker to shift manager to now he was like doing logistics in an office for them. And it was like this great place to work, and don't believe all the stuff you hear about how it's, this nightmare job. It's actually pretty good, reasonably flexible, blah, 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 benefits and all that stuff. Unions. I got a lot of feelings on unions that I can't share, but there's a time and a place for unions. And I think that time and place has passed broadly. We're no longer working in unsafe conditions in coal mines for the most part, and places where there are potentially unsafe conditions are unionized and are unionized for a good reason. I'm not sure that Amazon needs a union. Amazon also, to your point, ruthlessly efficient. And as long as there's someone to drive that truck and someone to, tape that box or whatever, there's no need for Amazon to worry about Quebec as a distribution center. We've also talked in the past about how Canada, by and large, is too small a population to deal with for a lot of companies. And, Quebec is a very small part of that population. So, you maybe lose, just trying to think like, what are the densest areas there? Quebec City, Montreal. That's pretty much it, how much are you losing? Not, yeah, but like, that's not really that, is there a million people in Hull? I doubt it.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So
it's like the other side of Ottawa, right? So,
yeah. So, okay. So yeah, exactly. The other side of the bridge. Right. What are you losing there if you're Amazon? The headache of the union for sure.
Market penetration. That's one thing. Like, they want to have total control of the market, and just say that they own it everywhere. But if they're not making money doing it, it doesn't make sense for them to continually provide services there. I'm not trying to say that.
Are they for sure shuttering the operation or just firing the entire staff?
It's the 7 warehouses are closed. So what that means beyond that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't part with all that real estate and capital and just restart.
Give it back to Sears.
Restart it in a year. Looking forward to seeing Spirit Halloween open up at every Amazon warehouse
of the year.
Another future shop here.
Then it'll be a fireworks store every Canada Day, and I think it just rotates shit like that.
I love it. That's it for tonight. That's all we got. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. 200 episodes is a lot. Me and Len really appreciate all the stuff we've been able to do, and it's only because we get support from all you guys every week. So thank you. Stay tuned for this week, Wednesday, Zach, Bitcoin Denver. Next week, John Rubino. And the week after that, Diaz and Dicker. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Don't do anything that we wouldn't do.
In solidarity.